How did these funeral homes get away with having such sketchy and abhorrent practices in modern times? I'm talking as recently as the 1980s, early 2000s, and 2010s. Find out as we dive into 3 dreadful funeral home scandals. And if that interests you, then watch to the end of the video to find out why one particular state is majorly overhauling its entire funeral industry. Alright, so let's start by diving right in with the Morning Glory funeral home scandal. This incident took place in Jacksonville, Florida in 1988 at the Howell Morning Glory Chapel, which was owned and operated by Louis J. Howell. It involved improper disposal and burial of bodies by the funeral home's owner and was eventually shut down by state authorities following the discovery of multiple decomposing bodies. Their investigation eventually revealed bodies stacked in the funeral home without preservation or refrigeration and multiple bodies buried inside a single casket. The scandal first came to light in June of 1988 when a number of decomposing bodies were found inside the funeral home. A total of 36 bodies, including 1 fetus and 3 sets of body parts, were uncovered inside the building. Most of the corpses were stacked in a closet, and some had been in the building for as long as a decade. Later, 3 caskets buried by the funeral home at Hillside Cemetery were exhumed and found to contain a total of 8 bodies and a bag of mixed bones. Louis J. Howell was convicted of felony grand theft for accepting money for funerals that were not performed. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison but served only a few months and was released in February 1989. The incident led to a tightening of Florida's regulation of the funeral industry. The case was featured in the season 3 episode, A Deadly Business, of the TV show Dr. G, Medical Examiner. We now move a little north from Jacksonville, a place I'm pretty familiar with, to a town in Georgia, a place I've never been. The Tri-State Crematory scandal occurred in Noble, Georgia, and involved Ray Brent Marsh, who operated the crematory after taking over from his father in the mid-1990s. It came to light in February 2002 that nearly 340 bodies that were supposed to be cremated by Marsh and his crematory had not been, but instead they had been dumped in several locations in and around the crematorium site. Families who believed they had received their loved ones' ashes were instead given concrete dust. That sounds oddly familiar. The discovery was made when a propane delivery man noticed bodies on the property, prompting a police investigation. The scandal led to Marsh's arrest and subsequent conviction on multiple charges, including theft by deception and abuse of a corpse. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison, followed by probation. Of the nearly 340 bodies, 113 remain unidentified. DNA testing was possible in the cases where a living relative was available, but in other cases, it was considered unlikely officials would ever be able to identify the remains. The fallout from this scandal included widespread outrage and emotional trauma for the affected families, as well as significant changes to the funeral industry in Georgia. Stricter regulations and more rigorous inspections were implemented to prevent similar incidents in the future. Again, in Georgia, because most of the time this is just state by state. The motives behind Brent Marsh's actions are unclear, as it would have been easier to just cremate the remains than to dump them. During his guilty plea in court, he stated, "To those of who may have come here today looking for answers, I cannot give you any." Legal issues presented in the case were novel, including the crafting of the charges against Marsh. Buzz Franklin, the district attorney of Walker County, Georgia, created law in bringing indictments against Marsh. In response to Marsh's claim that the cremation oven was broken, the oven was tested and found to be in working order. Although subsequent examinations by experts did find faults, several crematory operators at the time commented that even if the machine had broken down, proper maintenance would have kept the incinerator working, noting that most oven manufacturers have regular maintenance programs available. On February 7th, 2007, a week before the 5th anniversary of the discoveries at the former crematory, the criminal defense attorneys for Marsh revealed that psychological testing had indicated that Brent Marsh was a victim of mercury toxicity from when he was cremating the bodies. They stated that a faulty ventilation system exposed both Marsh and his father to toxic levels of mercury. This isn't the first time that mercury poisoning has affected certain professions. Why do you think the Mad Hatter was so mad?
To you. Who, me? Yes, you. Oh, me?
And to finish off our quick little romp around funeral scandals, we travel from Georgia all the way to Colorado, specifically to Montrose on the western slope, which weirdly enough, I've also been to. I feel oddly close to 2 out of the 3 places we've been to today. I'll be in Georgia next summer, but nowhere near Noble, but I'll count it anyway, so I can say eventually I'll be 3 for 3. But if you ever have the opportunity to get out to Montrose in Colorado, you have to visit Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park. It's an underrated national park and one of the 4 in Colorado that are all truly unique. Anyway, back to business. According to a grand jury indictment, this next lovely piece of philanthropy occurred from 2010 through 2018. Megan Hess, 45, and her mother, Shirley Koch, operated the Sunset Mesa Funeral Home in Montrose. They were arrested in 2020 and charged with 6 counts of mail fraud and 3 counts of illegal transportation of hazardous materials. They were accused of illegally selling body parts and giving clients fake ashes. Due to lack of oversight and regulation in Colorado, Hess and her mother had their original sentence overturned by an appeals court in the summer of 2024. Stay tuned to the end of this video to find out what other scandals caused Colorado to finally implement new laws that are supposed to strengthen the regulatory process and that will require funeral homes to actually be licensed, previously not required in Colorado, which led to many of these problems. As the story goes, Hess and her mother offered to cremate bodies and provide the remains to families at a cost of $1,000 or more, but many of the cremations never occurred, a theme in this whole thing that has weirdly repeated itself. Hess had created a non-profit organization in 2009 called Sunset Mesa Funeral Foundation as a body broker service doing business as donor services. On dozens of occasions, Hess and her mother transferred bodies or body parts to third parties for research without families' knowledge. The transfers were done through Sunset Mesa Funeral Foundation and donor services. Hess and Koch also shipped bodies and body parts that tested positive for or belonged to people who died from infectious diseases including hepatitis B and C and HIV, despite certifying to buyers that the remains were disease-free. Both of them originally had pleaded not guilty to their charges. Prosecutors recommended a sentence for them of 12 to 15 years, but after the original sentences were appealed, they are now awaiting a new sentencing. If they've already been resentenced, or if new information arises, then let me know in the comments. I just couldn't find anything more than they were going to be resentenced. It is now, once again, your turn to share. When did you first hear about these scandals? Was it before you watched this video? Do you have any additional information regarding any of these? Or any other crimes involving other funeral scandals? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to learn more and correct any mistakes that I may have made. And would you like to see more true crime videos from me? If so, let me know by liking this video, subscribing to my channel, and telling me what other topics you'd like me to cover. Also, now that we've come to the end of this video, we can continue our discussion on funeral home scandals in the comments, and if you want to know more about one particularly morbid crime involving funeral homes, then check out my video on the Return to Nature Funeral Home here. So, until next time, take care, and thank you for watching.